Do bosses like Michael Scott actually exist? And if you worked for one, what's your craziest story? I had a boss once who spent all morning locked in his office. He asked me to come in after lunch where he showed me a handmade graph. He then proceeded to explain that this was a chart of all the sex he had ever had in his life. See, here it is blank until I joined the army. Then I went to a hooker here. Then they sent me to Vietnam where hookers only charge $2 per time. That's where you see the big jump. I was on 2 tours but then got shot in the face. I came back home and you see how it just drops to almost nothing. I was astounded. What the F? He held a meeting with our whole team less one person to discuss said person being gay. We all knew for well over a year and never made a deal of it. So yes, they are out there and that is why the show is so funny to me. I can relate. I had one and these are just a few quick stories. He asked me how much I weighed during my interview. One time he was considering selling the company to a Japanese company and while walking them around the building, he was heard saying we really bombed the hell out of you. He got on the intercom and interrupted everyone by yelling for someone to bring him the football team schedule. I have video of him telling a really cringy joke during a sales meeting. You could see at least one person covering their face in embarrassment. One time he told me to call his assistant and have her bring him a bag of coffee and his 5-pound dumbbell. He had a secret facelift. He was mysteriously gone for 3 weeks and came back with a beard. I ended up with a box of pictures from the 70s with an exotic dancer giving him a lap dance. In the conference room. Same furniture. One time I watched his business partner go down the potluck line, tasting everything with the same fork. At the end of the line, he stuck his used fork into the cake. I haven't eaten at a work buffet since. Honestly, these are just the ones I immediately remember. It was 5 years of this. Edit, this seemed relevant. One time he got new patio furniture and sent the guys from the shipping department to put it together at his house. Orders did not go out that day. Edit 2. He had a huge closet where he'd hoard random shit. He was a total pack rat and his wife didn't let him keep junk at home. I was looking for something one day and found a box labeled watches with dead batteries. He saved an entire box of watches that he knew didn't currently work, and also knew how to fix that. But instead, he just kept them in a box. Work with a genuine Michael Scott, a nice, well-meaning person who just did some absurd things. We had kidnapping drills one day, where we learned how to not be kidnapped. Notably, this was a regular, boring office in a regular, boring suburb. No reason why kidnapping would be on anybody's radar. He and several of the guys randomly broke out into a push-up contest. Again, white-collar office, middle-aged dudes in khakis. Couldn't remember the nationality of our Hispanic colleague. Tried to learn Spanish to make her feel special when she returned from maternity leave. What he learned was not Spanish, and she was from Portugal. She knew like 5 words of Spanish. Disappeared for 4 days. No call, no email. Wouldn't respond to any of our attempts to reach him. Finally, someone drove out to his house to make sure he was alive. He'd just forgotten to tell us he was taking the week off, and then lost his phone in a lake. There were many moments like these. Great boss, genuinely cared about everyone in the company. Occasional moments of brilliance, where he really got things done. But OMG, so many moments of ridiculousness. He wanted a pomegranate for lunch and they were out of season, but that didn't stop him from sending me on a quest to every grocery store in town in search of a pomegranate. Multiple produce guys laughed at me, but that was the easiest $13 an hour I've ever made. Edit, wow this blew up, rather than replying to each of you I'll say it here. No, I did not find a pomegranate, and when I came back he was eating Subway and he seemed to have forgot he'd even sent me. Maybe I could have gone home or to the movies etc, but IDK. Driving around leisurely listening to the radio seemed like a pretty good alternative to doing my actual work at the time. I did in fact check the gas station in Carbondale. They also do not carry pomegranates unless they are in season. I had a redhead boss who made us all sit down and watch a training video about how we shouldn't refer to him as a ginger, because it is bullying. No one had ever called him that. Pam, that's not a hate crime Michael. Michael, well, I hated it. I had a boss that used to watch me through a gap in the glass partition between our desks. She wanted to see if I was paying attention during meetings. One day, I put a large folder to cover the gap and she freaked. I still laugh when I think about it. This sounds way more like Dwight, but still hilarious. Never have worked for one myself, but my dad told me a story about his boss who was giving out awards to everyone in honor of how long they've worked there, and he would give speeches for each person. A woman employee received her award and he gave a speech about the story of how she came to work there. And he said, "At first I didn't want to hire her because she was so hot. My dad's not working there anymore. But I love that story because I will never not picture Michael Scott giving Pam a Dundee and saying that about her." Edit. For all those asking, I am Big Tuna's distant cousin, enlarged tuna fish. I once worked for a family company, not my family, where my boss often had loud fights with her husband, mother, and sister, an addict with a penchant for stealing, in the halls. I have a million wonderful stories about that workplace, but one that stuck out to me is this. Once for someone's birthday, she decided it would be fun to buy an anatomically correct, male blow-up doll. She took this doll into the office, blew him up, and dressed him in a construction vest. The company was a contractor. When I walked by, my boss was trying to manipulate the position of the blow-up dick, and asked me if I wanted to be the fluffer. My brother had two bosses at his first job that I think fit this. It was an old married couple that owned the gym across the street from us. Probably in their 70s when he started working there. The wife was from Germany and super strict. The husband was clearly losing it. Some notable mentions are: when the husband combined bleach and ammonia to clean the hot tub and sauna room, tear gassing my brother in the process. Wife insisted the street be swept once a week. This was my brother's task. Almost every single time, the husband would come out halfway through with a leaf blower and destroy any progress my brother had made. Husband would regularly sit in the sauna for way too long and have to be rescued by brother and co-workers. Brother opened every Saturday. They never gave him a key, so he would have to hop the fence to get in. There's so many more, but I know he's asleep right now and I can't ask him. Had a boss who was very peculiar. For instance, he'd open a random closet, look at the stuff inside, then go on a tirade. Look at all this. Who bought all this crap? You did. Oh, well, somebody needs to throw it away. Constant stuff like this. I literally had a boss who would stop us in the middle of our work and hold company-wide meetings talking about 9/11 truth or conspiracies and chemtrails. Mind you, we were a furniture making company. He would get so caught up in his conspiracy theories that he forgot to order wood to make furniture one month. My ass boss insisted his daughters be flower girls in my wedding. I declined. At the reception, he told me I was spending too much time talking to one person, and I need to work the room more. Was he referring to your new spouse? Yep, I had one. Organized a thoroughly awkward award ceremony once, that we never did again. Asked a Mexican employee if his new baby's name was going to be No Mas during the shower we threw for him. Heard me once use the phrase economy of scale, then used it wrong 5 minutes later in a conversation with different people. Didn't know the meaning behind Black Friday and what it meant for a company to be in the black, just like Michael Scott, only more of a dick. Had a manager at my previous job that really tried his best to be everyone's BFF. He loved giving pep talks and thought he could raise our abysmal morale by being Mr. Positivity. Note, morale was low because we were always buried in work and paid shit. He'd crack jokes, randomly burst into song and sneak up behind you to yell you're doing a great job. Unfortunately, he was also super incompetent at his job. He relied heavily on a junior colleague for help with technical stuff. They practically did his whole job for him, and spent days working on paperwork that should really only take an hour or two. If you had a problem, his answer was usually either to stare blankly at you until you left or to say, "Think positive and it'll work itself out." Thing he did I hated the most: whenever people would apply to work at the company, he'd print out the stack of resumes, sit at his desk and read aloud all of the parts he found funny. He'd laugh at people for working at McDonald's or other fast food places. He loved finding grammar mistakes and making fun of them. If someone had a cringy objective statement, he'd guffaw over that too. This was all done loudly, and it was an open office so you couldn't avoid hearing it. That definitely lowered morale too. My boss used to carry around a backpack full of hammers, and if you fell asleep at your desk, he started banging a hammer on your desk until you woke up, and then he would autograph the hammer and give it to you as a gift. Long ago, my 80-year-old boss pulled me into his office. B. Paul, I've noticed that your shirts come untucked and that looks unprofessional. Me. I'm sorry about that, Joel. B. I want you to start tucking your shirts into your underwear. Me. B. Go ahead and try it now. Me. Joel, you know I have 15 women who report to me. I can't undo my pants in the office. B. Sure you can. Drops pants. He is 80 and wearing Spider-Man underoos. This is also the story of how I went to work at OK instead. I had a boss sneak up behind a middle-aged female and pick her up, then immediately drop her down saying, "I didn't think you weighed that much." He could not stop laughing. He was the principal. This occurred during passing period in a crowded middle school hallway. My mom's boss was the head manager at an office job in suburbia. Pretty similar number of employees and function to the office in the show. He was in his late 40s at the time and invited himself to my mom's birthday party at our house one year. Basically was just my siblings and a few family friends meeting up to play cornhole and chat for a couple hours. He showed up in pastel blue shorts, a pink polo, and flip-flops with a case of natural light. He got hammered by like 9 PM and started yelling at everyone. He saw a couple of our neighbors, younger guys, drinking next door and took the liberty to invite them over. Eventually he ended up in a wrestling match with one of the neighbors in the living room, which he finished by lifting the neighbor up in the air and body slamming him directly onto our coffee table. His final act of the evening was shitting his pants in the kitchen and passing out on the linoleum. We had an anonymous feedback program at work, and our boss was livid with the results, particularly with several comments that he frequently lost his temper in meetings and would yell at us. The more he talked about how incorrect and unfair and hurtful these comments were, the redder and angrier he got, until he finally pounded the table and shouted, "I do not scream in meetings, okay?" Mine had aspects of Michael Scott, but the ones that are sad and pathetic and not funny. A couple examples. He called an all-staff meeting to announce his divorce. He then instructed our receptionist to lie to his soon-to-be ex-wife and deny he was in the office all the time. He was just so incompetent at his job. If a task was too big or complicated, he would just not do it. Wouldn't ask for help or anything. He'd just move on and leave whatever issue to fester. I would have to constantly monitor and follow up with him to get things done that affected my job. His writing read like he used a thesaurus heavily. Tons of superfluous words clearly put in there to make him sound smart. When he was terminated, he kept the corporate laptop and cell phone. After several strongly worded letters requesting their return, he drove back to the office, parked on the edge of the road, think busy rural highway, and made his teenage son carry it all across the yard and parking lot to deliver them. I was eventually tasked by the big bosses to coordinate his termination. They then gave me his job plus my previous one. I can do both within a 40-hour week, no problem. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe for more daily Reddit videos.